Need to check off here.
Oh, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Amanda Rivera. I'm the hearing examiner presiding over today's case. The date is April 17th, 2025, and this is case DCI 2024-00025. It's a request for the Sanibel Siesta RV Resort. Because this is a quasi-judicial hearing, all evidence and testimony must be taken under oath. So if you intend to speak, if you could please raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will provide is the truth?
I do.
Thank you. So the order of proceedings today is first we're going to hear from the applicant. They're going to present their case and call any witnesses that they may have in support of that request. After that, we'll hear from the county staff who will present their review of the request and their recommendation. In this case, they are recommending approval with conditions and some deviations. After that, I will open the public comment period. That's when I'll call up the cards that I have in the order that I have them. There is only one opportunity to speak, so I would encourage you to make the most of your time when you're at the podium. After we close public comment, we'll come back to the applicant and the staff for their rebuttal and any closing comments that they may have. With that, we can begin. Did staff have an affidavit of publication?
We do have an affidavit of publication. If I could get that to you on our recess, I do have that.
Okay, I will accept that later and we'll proceed until we get that. Thank you. So the applicant can begin whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Madam Hearing Examiner. For the record, my name is Megan Strayhorn. I'm an attorney with Strayhorn, Persons, Mullica, and Fisher here on behalf of the applicant and property owner for Sanibel Siesta RV Resort. As an initial matter, we do have expert witnesses, which we would like to proffer. Mr. Carl Baracco for engineering and Mr. Vince Caturo is a certified planner, both of which have been previously accepted as to expert witnesses in this forum. Additionally, we have Justin Walsh, who provided our landscape design, who has not presented as an expert witness. So at this time, I would like to proffer him.
Okay. Did you want him to present his credentials at the time of his testimony or at this time?
I would like to do that now, if that.
You could bring him up then, please.
Mr. Walsh, would you? And I do have a copy of his resume for the record. Mr. Walsh, could you please provide Madam Hearing Examiner information regarding your educational background and your experience with landscape and the Lee County Land Development Code?
I am Justin Walsh, president and owner of R.S. Walsh Landscaping here in Lee County. I went to school at University of Alabama, graduated with business administration degree back in 2010. For the last 15 years, I've been working full-time with the company. I've done a multitude of different design aspects throughout my tenure there. We've done a lot of land development code as far as from commercial projects here in Lee County. I do a lot with City of Sanibel and their land development code as well. DEP permits for coastal setbacks on new residences on the islands. I've worked from a design build aspect. I've done a lot of plans and worked on a lot of projects under supervision that deal with the code as well. So I'm very versed as far as a lot of that goes.
And are you familiar with the Lee Plan as well?
Yes, ma'am.
And the landscaping policies that are provided?
Yes, ma'am.
therein? Okay.
At this time,
I could accept his resume too. His resume will be labeled as applicant exhibit 1. Thank you. And I did receive your 48-hour letter, which was applicant exhibit A, just for record-keeping purposes.
Thank you, Madam Hearing Examiner. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Okay. In regards to the 48-hour letter, there has been some recent conversations between the applicant and staff that I would like to update now. One of the items addressed in staff's report, as well as in the 48-hour letter, is the excess spoil removal plan. At this time, applicant is in agreement with staff's proposal. We are requesting that the excess spoil removal be removed from our schedule of uses, and we are in agreement with staff's proposed schedule of uses.
Thank you.
I also have additional evidence to submit into the record. At this time, would you like I have the PowerPoint presentation, the updated landscape, as well as the updated master concept plan. Madam Hearing Examiner, would you prefer to have those now or at time of?
I'll accept them now. Were the landscape plan and the master concept plan the same as what were in the 48-hour letter?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then I'll accept it as a composite exhibit for applicant exhibit 2, as I already have those. Thank you.
There's also, just to add into the record, there's also the proposed updated deviation numbers.
Oh, thank you. consistent again, excuse me, consistent again, that's okay, with the 48-hour letter as
Yes,
well?
ma'am.
Okay, so then the applicant's PowerPoint exhibit will be applicant exhibit 2. Is it the intention that the landscape plan is going to be appended to the zoning resolution that goes to the board, or is that just for the staff report purposes?
Just for the staff report purposes, there are, because this is an RVPD, there are specific landscape requirements.
Okay, I just want to be sure again, I can accept that then just as part of applicant exhibit A, but I do want to separately label the master concept plan
Yes.
as applicant exhibit 3, because just for, it
Yes.
makes it a little easier going to the board moving forward. And the deviation schedule, again, was consistent with A, so I'll keep that there. Thank you.
And the wording might be different from applicant's proposed deviations versus staff's. Applicant is in agreement with staff's. And applicant is prepared to begin whenever you're ready, madam.
One moment, I just want to be sure I have all of this labeled correctly.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm ready, thank you.
This is a request. This is case number, as previously indicated, DCI 2024-00025, what is known as the Sanibel Siesta RV Resort. Again, for purpose of introduction, for the record, my name is Megan Strayhorn. I'm an attorney on behalf of the property owner and applicant. With me is our certified planner, Vincent Conturo, our engineer, Carl Baracco, and landscape, Mr. Justin Walsh. This area is located on McGregor Boulevard. It is surrounded by similar residential uses. It was formerly known as the Century 21 Mobile Home Park, as can see here, which is the original layout and site plan. Now, this park was a mobile home park entitled Century 21. Unfortunately, much like many other mobile home parks, it met its demise at the face of Hurricane Ian, and it also suffered from a series of tornadoes. We are proud and happy to say that those mobile homes have been removed from the site, and the site is currently cleared. It is also interesting that this mobile home parcel of land has been owned, although the title of ownership may have changed over the past, since the 70s, it's been the same families who've owned it the entire time, and they will continue to do so, and that is the property owner here today. So our request is to rezone the property. It is currently largely MH2 with one parcel being Ag2, to rezone it as an recreational vehicle planned development zoning district, which would allow a maximum of 404 recreational vehicle sites with amenities and accessibility. The Land Development Code, Section 34-931, as well as Section 34-939, pertain to the code specified requirements for RV planned districts, which is planned developments, rather. And as will be presented today, this proposal is consistent. Although it is not required, we did have a community meeting held back in October, where we invited members of the public and neighbors to come and learn about exactly what the Sanibel Siesta RV Resort will be. It was a well-attended meeting, and it was very informative. And as seen on the slide, those are some of the topics that were addressed. And at this time, I will turn it over to Vincent Conturo for planning and land use analysis.
Thank you, Megan. Good morning, Madam Hearing Examiner. The master concept plan is depicted on 3 sheets, and I'm going to go over those very briefly and talk about each one. The master concept plan, page 1, shows the general outline of the development. As you can see, there are 4 lakes that are proposed. There are 2 access points that we're proposing, but one would be an emergency access. It would not count as a second access, and I'll talk about that briefly in the deviation section in just a few moments. The entry feature is located essentially in the middle of the property. This access point for ingress and egress already exists. That was the access point for the former mobile home park. We are proposing a little bit further southwest an emergency exit point here. And the deviation would be for the separation requirement, which I'll go over. Also, I would just call your attention to an IDD easement, which is on the western or central western portion of the property. The second sheet shows the open space. We meet the open space requirement for a major planned development. In this particular development, given the size of the property, the requirement would be a little over 15 acres, and our proposal is approximately 16.3 acres of open space. The concept plan sheet 3 is the same as number 1 with the deviations highlighted, and this was done, as you can see, in little triangles for I'll work with staff, but they are removed for the official concept plan, which is on sheet number 1.
And those were updated after you removed deviation number 2?
Yes, yes, thank you for correcting me on that. One of the deviations was withdrawn. We are in agreement with staff for that withdrawal, and I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Surrounding uses to the north and south, strip commercial development, as stated in the staff report, and mobile home development immediately west and southwest, and single-family nearby and multifamily located immediately southwest and north of the proposed redevelopment site. Two items that I wanted to highlight that are blended throughout our narrative report, and I would also say through the staff report, dealing with compatibility. And I just want to highlight these two. As we know, RV parks and resorts are often located near residential developments. And in some communities, they are considered residential in Florida. However, as we are aware, they are not in Lee County. In addition, the proximity is also found close to multifamily and mobile home parks throughout the county. Our plan is that the design elements of the resort will blend in with the surrounding neighborhood and not detract from the aesthetics of nearby development. And in this particular land use category, I would also point out that there are two developments, RV developments on North Tamiami Trail in this land use category, Raintree RV Resort and Sunseekers. Surrounding future land uses to the suburban land use, as you can see, the majority of the land surrounding the property is in suburban, and in the green, the urban community, if my eyes are, central urban, excuse me, and urban community to the, to the southwest in yellow here. Surrounding zoning is a mix. Based on my discussion a few moments ago, you have residential planned development to the north and northwest, residential multifamily to RM2 to the east and west, and south, and mobile home to the southwest, and multifamily residential to the directly south as well. You'll notice in this property in the, that's embarrassing, I apologize, there's a small strip of agriculture zoning, and that was listed, of course, in the rezone petition. So it's a change from MH2 and Ag2 to RVPD. Briefly, consistency with the comprehensive plan, all of these are contained in the narrative. I discussed a moment ago the suburban category uses and consistency. As the hearing examiner is aware, The suburban category allows predominantly for residential, even though this is not residential. There are uses that are non-residential that are allowed. Development, location, and timing, we believe were consistent, mostly because this was an existing development and is already in place. Impacts have been felt. Objective 4.1 will be met, which contains detailed water, sewer, and environmental standards. Some of those environmental I will go over briefly in a minute, and Mr. Baraka will talk about utilities. Goal number 5, specifically 5.1.5 residential land uses and protection from residential areas. I discussed a moment ago and stated that we believe there's consistency due to the fact that the development was a residential development previously, a mobile home park, and even though this development is considered commercial, it blends in with the area, and design elements will be taken into consideration, and buffering and landscaping, of course. Goal 72 and the specific objective 72.1.1 as well as 73 and objective 73.1, evacuation and shelter planning and emergency management will be met through the development of an emergency management and evacuation plan that the applicant will prepare in conjunction with the regulatory agencies in Lee County at the development order phase as is required. Goal 101, coastal areas, design and construction methodologies and requirements will be met. New FEMA requirements are in place at this location due to the change in the flood insurance rate maps or firm maps. For specific questions about that, Mr. Baracco is very familiar with those regulations. And lastly, surface and groundwater policies we will be consistent with, and surface water management will be discussed also before we conclude. Landscape plans, we have 2 pages, and at this time, and for some reason they're not appearing on here, but we have it in the packet and we have copies of it. I'll ask Mr.
Walsh.
Yes, I was looking at Mr. Walsh to come up and discuss those.
I'm happy to put up my
Yeah,
presentation,
if you
which
could.
has a slide of your.
You could.
landscape plan.
Thanks.
Thank you, Adam.
I promise you they were on there when I did a test run about 8
You gotta
o'clock
love
this morning.
technology, right?
Yeah.
It happens.
So. You probably won't need this for that.
There's the laser on here,
Is that good?
red button.
The red button, yeah. There you go.
That looks like it.
Yes.
Yep. Let's see.
This is what was included in the 48-hour letter.
All right, so just an overview. There are primarily 2 land development code provisions which guide the design for the RVPD. The first is specific to RVPDs, 34.939, and also the general landscape design code requirements contained in 10.421. You know, from this slide, so 34.939 requires RVPDs to have a 40-foot perimeter buffer with internal plantings to buffer the commercial use from surrounding residential uses. So around the entire perimeter, and you can see that they're labeled. We're kind of zoomed in right here, but A through H, each individual buffer, depending on the length of it, you know, shows the quantities of the trees and the shrubs that are required within each section. One change that staff had requested, there is a utility easement that's right here in buffer C that we extended another 10-foot section of buffer planting into those RV spaces to allow for covering of that, since we can't plant within that utility easement. The code does permit a bike and or pedestrian path through the area, which is indicated by the gray line that runs on the outskirts. And that also shows on the MCP plan. Currently, there's no buffer existing on the perimeter of the property right now. And because of that, it does require that there be 10 trees per every 100 feet and 66 shrubs. Those trees at the time of planting are required to be 14 feet tall. So that's basically a 14-foot tall tree every 10 feet. The 66 shrubs need to be a minimum of 36 inches at time of planting, and that's from crest of road. And they need to be maintained at a maturity level of at least 5 feet tall. So from a pure buffer standpoint, it's 40 feet wide. It should provide a lot of blocking. There's a cross-section that we'll look at that shows the staggered nature, from where that pedestrian path comes through, so you can kind of get an idea of what those cross-sections look like. There are all of those, it needs to be 75% minimum of trees and shrubs must be native. And we went through that. Do you want me to run through deviations?
Well, I wanted just for clarification then, the solid line that's kind of an undulating line that goes around that is the pedestrian path?
Pedestrian
So you're going to
path,
have
yes, ma'am.
plantings on either side of that?
Yes,
throughout
ma'am.
the development? Okay. Yes, and then I don't know,
Yes.
we do need to go through the deviations, but I don't want to tell you how to run your,
Absolutely. Mr. Walsh, if you could point out the deviation pertaining to the entrance area?
So this is the deviation number 1, and that is in buffer D. Because of the existing entry to the community, there was limited space to put a 40-foot buffer within that span. Because of that, it will include a 15-foot wide alternative buffer with an 8-foot wide or 8-foot tall solid wall. The planting for that area is required to be on the outside of that wall, which it will be, and the heights of the shrubs and the trees within that category are staying the same. And we've actually used the same number of trees and the same number of plants as if it were the 40-foot wide section around the rest of the entire property. It was just a limit of space, and we couldn't fit that into where the existing entry was located at.
so you'll meet the planting standards for material, you'll just be in a truncated width area?
Yes, ma'am.
Certain-
And there'll be an 8-foot tall solid wall.
Okay, with
that
the
would be
plantings on
blocking
the
that.
exterior.
Mm-hmm.
Can you also touch on Mr. Walsh, on the existing chain link fence on the property?
Yeah, so deviation number 4, there's an existing chain link fence in buffers C, F, G, and H, and that is located, let's see, C runs along the top right here, and then we have G and H at the bottom, and F. I'm not sure where we've got F at.
It's like right here.
Yeah, it runs the entire length of this entire section right here, that corridor. So we've got, let's see. The code requires plantings to be planted on the exterior of the fence, and that's per LDC 421A8. And basically that says if a wall or fence is proposed but not required, then the required buffer plantings must be installed on the exterior side. Because that fence is existing, the applicant wishes to repair that fence, and then the deviation would just be pertained to planting that 40-foot wide buffer on the inside of that fence instead. When it went over that with staff, they approved that with deviation, and we agree with their comments as far as that goes.
So will it be fenced and walled, or only certain portions will have the wall?
It will be fenced. The only wall that exists right now, and the buffer is going to be on the outside of it, is the wall that runs along McGregor Boulevard, and the 40-foot would be on the outside of that. As far as the fence goes, there's no wall requirement for the buffer, and the only reason why we put a wall up in buffer D was because there was a limited space and you couldn't fit the 40-foot width in. So we'll still have the 40-foot width across the board, and then you'll just have the chain link fence was just the deviation in number 4 that we were requesting to plant on the inside of it, inside the property, instead of the outside.
And what level of opacity are you thinking this will achieve, since you're still doing the same plantings, but just in a shorter area for the area, just in general? I'm not asking for the deviations, but just from the external experience of the project, what level of ability do you think others are going to be able to see into the project?
I don't think you're going to be able to see in very well at all. You know, you've got 14 feet tall on most of the trees. They're 10-foot spaced, and that's at time of planting. The underlying shrubs will end up having to be maintained at a 6-foot height minimum. which I would, assume would probably end up being a little bit taller than that and come within the bottom of the tree canopy. So, we can look at slide number 2, which shows the cross sections. If you could pull that up, if we've got it.
Just for the record, this is Adam Mendez with the county zoning section. I'm going to pull up your presentation. I don't have a copy of the cross sections, but
Okay.
if that is not available, just point the hearing examiner to the page in the exhibit.
Do we know what page that's on?
It's on.
It's the,
Cross section.
it's the-
Is it this sheet, the L2 that you provided?
That's it. Yes, ma'am.
that's it.
Yeah.
In terms of timing, is that something you can speak to? I assume that the landscape buffer would need to be installed prior to site development of actual RVs being able to occupy the site?
I'm sorry.
Oh.
Say that again.
Looks like it's up now, Vince.
It's up.
Would the landscape buffer need to be installed prior to occupancy of the site? So before the RV pads would
Yes, it
actually
would.
be
It
utilized?
definitely would.
It's up, so we can go to the next page.
So, yeah, could you go to the next page?
No,
Next
you-
slide.
You can
Yeah,
actually use your
you do it.
clicker.
Oh, I
Let me,
gotcha.
use
Oh,
that.
there we go. All right, so in the cross sections, you're kind of seeing the 14-foot high on all the canopy trees. You've got pointing to for deviation number 1, cross section number 4, which is buffer D. This is the entry. So this kind of shows, where you'll have that wall. You've got a limited space, so you're not, you don't have that 40-foot depth, but we still have the canopy and the shrub layers in behind it. And then for deviation number 4, with the existing fence sections, that's cross section number 1, and that relates to buffers C, H, G, and F. And that just shows basically your fence line right here, and then the existing chain link fence, and then the buffers on the inside of that. As far as the walking paths are concerned, we've got cross-section 1, 2, and 3 all indicate that. As you can see, it kind of jogs back and forth. You're going to end up having, some trees on the inside, some trees on the outside of that walking path as it meanders along. But the spacing of the individual trees and shrubs across the board are going to end up being consistent with every 10 feet having, your mature tree and then your shrubs underneath that. I think that's really kind of all I have, unless you have a question.
Madam Hearings,
I did my site visit yesterday, and the entrance is still pretty vegetated. Is that vegetation going to remain, or will that be,
Most of that will be removed.
that'll be removed and
Yep.
replanted with?
There are a couple of live oaks on the outside of the wall along McGregor that may end up being saved in the end, and it just added to.
Okay.
just 2 points of clarification for the applicant, or for the expert, if I may. Mr. Wash, I'm going to go back to the landscape plan, and I'm going to point out the section with my mouse here, if I can see my mouse, let's see, where we're requesting a deviation for the width of the buffer to allow a 15-foot wide buffer where that pinch point exists because of the existing geometry of the road.
Yes, sir.
Is it true that it's just the pinch point of that buffer that's 15 feet wide? And if we look at both the north and south portion of that buffer, it actually flanges out to its actual entire width that's required?
I think it's still a little shy, but it definitely flanges out to where it's a little bit closer. We plan on planting, as wide as we can in those sections. It's really just that skinny part that runs through, and that's what really required the wall in the first place.
Thank you. And my second question, I'm going to go back to the master concept plan if I can make my way there. Let's see if I can find, sorry if I'm getting ahead of your slides. I think your deck here. Okay, so on the master concept plan, there is a depiction of the existing chain link fence. Is it correct? That's a 5-foot high chain link fence?
That goes around the outside, I believe so, yes, sir.
And so the master concept plan depicts the location of it. It doesn't completely go around the property, but it goes around several spans of it.
Certain sections, yes, sir.
And is it the applicant's position, it seems so with the 48-hour response, that this isn't proposing new chain link fencing?
No,
Where
it's
it's not proposed?
repairing existing only, that's
Okay.
all.
Thank you. That's all the questions I had.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. I'll turn it back over to Mr. Couture.
Thank you. Very briefly, an environmental assessment was conducted, and the Florida Land Use Classification Forms and Cover System was utilized, and vegetative and land cover mapping was conducted using the aerials from Lee County dated January 24, and the ground truthing was conducted on August 15th of last year. As you can see on the slide, the vegetative and land use cover types included an abandoned mobile home, road right-of-way, and no indigenous vegetation or environmentally sensitive areas were located or observed on site. The next slide just shows a copy for the record of that Florida Land Use Cover and Forms Classification System map prepared by Passarella and Associates. I'd like to ask Mr. Baracco to come up now and talk briefly about utilities, transportation, and surface water management.
Before you move on, just to confirm, because you had a waiver from most of the environmental submittals, but you still did the study?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Okay, and you didn't find any protected species, no wetlands, nothing of concern in that review?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Hearing Examiner. For the record, Carl Baracco. I'm a professional engineer with Baracco and Associates. And as Vince said, I am going to be discussing utilities, transportation, and surface water management. When I discuss those, it's important to understand, though, that prior to the hurricane and for several decades, there were 320 permanent mobile homes existing. So all the infrastructure for those mobile homes and their impacts on the surrounding area have been existing for several decades. So with regard to utilities, those 320 permanent mobile homes were served by Lee County Utilities, potable water and sanitary sewer. Those demands, the potable water demand and the sanitary sewer flows for 404 RV spaces is very similar. So those impacts are very similar. Also, I'd point out on the existing site, the water distribution system and the sanitary collection systems do exist. They will be replaced with a new system in both cases. But most importantly, as the slide shows, Lee County Utilities has acknowledged that they do have capacity currently for the 404 RV spaces. Next, transportation, and again, at the risk of being repetitive, there were 320 mobile homes existing, and the traffic generated from those mobile homes were on our local roads until just Hurricane Ian. However, the new system, the 404 RV units were studied as an addition to the existing system. The first thing we looked at is the link analysis, and that essentially is a review of McGregor Boulevard. That analysis was done by TR Transportation Consultants, and they found McGregor Boulevard to operate at a level of service B, an acceptable level of service, and that is at the year 2027, which would be the completion or the beginning of this project. And again, they found that that level of service B will be experienced on McGregor Boulevard in 2027 with or without this project. They also did an intersection analysis, and that's essentially looking at the intersection of the driveway, which you just looked at during the landscaping portion, and found that that would operate at an acceptable level of service again at 2027 with or without this project.
Can you clarify? I'm trying to recall where I read it in the staff report. I think it made reference to the fact that there was a more conservative estimate of what, can you just touch on that for a moment?
Yes, the mobile home has a definite category in the ITE trip generation, but there wasn't a category that specifically addressed this use. So in conjunction with TR Transportation, we found the most appropriate category, and that happened to be a little bit more conservative. So
You
that's
overestimated the trips, is what I understood from the
Yes.
materials, is that
Yeah,
the
and
numbers
if-
that you produced
Yes.
were more than what you actually expect this
exactly.
project would generate.
But it was closest we could determine in the ITE categories. So with regard to surface water management, again, the site exists. There is an existing water management system, although it's antiquated. The proposed project will include a new modern surface water management system that would be designed in accordance with Lee County and state of Florida requirements. And with regard to the state, it's important to note that at the end of this year, the new rules, stormwater rules, will be in effect, and that will definitely result in a more modern and more efficient water management system. And in my professional opinion, the water quality leaving the site will be a significant improvement, not only for this general area, but also the waters in Estero Bay where this outfalls. So there'll be a definite improvement. It's small because it's only one small piece of the puzzle, but I think collectively we're trying to make improvements, and this is a start.
Can you speak, I'm unfamiliar with the changes in the rules. What are they doing that's going to be different?
In a nutshell, with regard to water quality, back in the 1970s, when we first started designing water management systems, there were criteria put in place that were essentially presumptive, so that if you had a certain amount of impervious area and you provided a certain amount of treatment, you were presumed to meet water quality standards. Since then, there's been a lot of research, most of it at the University of Central Florida in the last few decades. They did things like monitored and tested stormwater runoff from many different improved sites so that they had an idea of what type of water was leaving those, and then also studied the efficiency of treatment systems. So with that empirical data, we can now specifically look at each system and quantify the removal of the contaminants.
Right, and that would apply to this project? The new
Yes,
rules?
because those rules are 100% in effect in December, and this permit won't be issued by then. So I'm confident that this will be subject to those new rules.
Thank you.
I believe we pulled out the excess stormwater, excess spoil removal. And
Yes,
we'll
so
just-
for the record, there are a few slides during this presentation pertaining to the excess spoil removal plan. As previously indicated, we are redacting those.
Thank you.
A little bit of background on that. The water management lakes have to be to a certain depth for water quality. But in this case, rather than taking all the excess off-site, we can just build up the site higher than it normally would be.
Is this the appropriate time to ask questions about that? Because I had pages of questions about the excess spoil removal, but those don't apply anymore. But some basic questions still about the elevations do, because the staff report did get into the importance of that because you're in the coastal high hazard and how that's going to relate, but I can save them if now it's not the time.
No, it'd be fine because that's all I was gonna, since we're pulling it, that's all I was gonna say, so we'll go ahead.
If you could just explain that. It seemed like the RV use is unique in that it does not require the same amount of elevations that the mobile home use would.
Sure. So in a typical project in Southwest Florida, we design and build a surface water management system, generally including lakes. The excavated material from those lakes is generally used on site to elevate the roads and, in most cases, the permanent habitable structures, because those structures have to be to a 100-year elevation. In this particular case, we don't have all those structures. They're RVs. So the only structures that would be built to that elevation would be the clubhouse and the amenities and the small associated areas. So we do have the ability, though, if you look at the on-site transportation, the pavement, there really is no reason for that pavement to be higher than McGregor Boulevard, which is the governing elevation in the area. But if and when we have that additional soil, we can simply raise our entire site and use it on-site.
And is the policy concern, I'm assuming, that mobile homes are different than the RVs because the RVs are transient, and so I assume there's some expectation that they would be removed if there were some type of evacuation or storm event that was occurring?
Yes, I think there's something in the documents that an RV user would sign that would require them to leave. But in this particular case, if we were to rebuild the mobile home park that was there pre-Ian, they would have to be at those 100-year flood elevations +1 for the building permit, building code.
And it seemed like the staff report, I can ask staff as well, there is some of that happening near this project. I'm not sure where, how does that interrelate then if certain sites are being raised and others aren't? Is the water management district looking holistically to ensure that they're not negatively impacting each other?
I presume the Water Management District will look at those things, and we actually looked at another one in this area similar to this, and they were going to be doing the same thing, but they analyzed it and found that they could economically raise all those mobile homes. They found a way to do that. It's be expensive, but they found a way to do it, because if natural ground is, say, at 7, and that's where they were, and now with the flood maps, they're at 11 or so. I could go look at the elevations on there, but there's a big difference that they can now raise those mobile homes with certain systems.
Okay, so leaving it as it is, the reason that the RVs are at grade, again, is because the residents within the park, and I'm using the word residents even though they're not actually the habitants, I suppose, would not be at danger during a storm event because they would be removed prior. And then in terms of offsite impacts of that though as well, is there any negative offsite impact to not raising it to meet?
I don't think there's going to be any negative impacts either way.
Okay, thank you.
So we're skipping that. And that brings deviations. So before I leave, if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
I asked them as we went through, but thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll be brief. We just have 2 more slides. Justin went over the deviations, so I won't do that. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. We're in agreement with the staff recommendations on all of them, and deviation number 2 was withdrawn. The numbers that you have on the master concept plan sheet 3 and in the narrative document on the justifications are the correct numbers. So I just wanted to point that out. In conclusion, it is my professional opinion that the application with the staff conditions, if they are opposed, is consistent with the Lee Plan and the Lee County Land Development Code. And we would stand by for any questions.
Mr. Couture, could I just circle back and ask for one clarification? My apologies, Madam Hearing
problem.
Examiner. There was a note in the staff report regarding the location of the dumpster.
Yes.
I'm just going to turn back to the master concept plan, if it works. There we go.
Yes.
And if you could just discuss that.
Yes. We originally had the dumpster location in an area that was parallel to the area that would be buffered, the 40-foot perimeter area and the pathway. Staff believed it was more appropriate to be placed in a different area, and our engineering staff was able to find a place that is, in essence, parallel to the easement on the eastern side of that. And it would not interfere with the construction of any amenities or the RV spaces and interfere in any way with the buffering and landscaping plan.
I was not able to access the full site because it is gated. So I got to go to the entry and kind of look around, and it appeared from what I could tell that the prior amenity center is essentially in basically the same area that you'll be putting this.
Essentially, yes.
So can you just discuss generally like site layout and how that's going to all function? The lakes obviously will be new. There's one existing lake, and then that would be in the center.
Right.
And is the rest just going to be RV lake or RV sites and roadways?
Yes, as you can see, the roadways are depicted, and then we have cut-through areas as well, and the RV spaces you can see are pretty much parallel in the areas, and with all of the amenities, buildings, recreational courts, event lawn in the northwest portion of the property, maintenance building in the southwest, but and then some additional uses that are on the property, but the area in the northwest is where all of those uses would converge.
And that's centrally located, essentially to buffer it from the external residents that are around
Yes.
the site? And all of the roadways, I assume, have been designed considering the enlarged size of the vehicles that you're going to have navigating through that?
Yes, that has been done. There have been a number of professionals that have assisted the applicant with that as well and provided their data to Baracco and Associates.
Thank you. Did staff have any questions of the applicant at this time?
No questions, thank you.
We'll turn it over to county staff, Mr. Mendez.
Thank you. I'm ready to begin whenever you are, Mr. Mendez.
Good morning, Madam Hearing Examiner. For the record, I'm Adam Mendez. I'm a principal planner with the Community Development Zoning Section. I have been previously qualified as an expert witness with respect to the county's Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Code. I would appreciate being accepted as such for the purpose of this presentation.
Yes, thank you.
Madam Hearing Examiner, I do have the affidavit of publication I'd like to submit into the record as a staff exhibit. I also do have copies of the staff PowerPoint presentation. And those will be my two exhibits.
Thank you. Then the staff report was pre-labeled Staff Exhibit 1, and so then I will accept the affidavit as Staff Exhibit 2. Thank
There
you.
is a duplicate page one on one of these.
Okay, thank you. And then your presentation will be 3. Give me just one moment, please, to review the affidavit.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. You can proceed.
Thank you. I want to start off by saying that the applicant has provided a complete presentation. I will try my best not to overlap where it's unnecessary, but where there is some overlap, hopefully you could just bear with me. So just looking at the case maps, and we're going to go through a composite of exhibits here that are pictorial in nature that just include exhibits that were in the staff report and what they mean in the context of the staff report, which is going to provide the entire basis of the approval, which is the recommendation before you with conditions through this plan development rezoning process. So in terms of location, we are between John Morris Road and San Carlos Boulevard on the south side of McGregor. I think it's approximately 3 miles from the causeway as the crow flies. The zoning or the future land use of the property, as Mr. Cotero indicated, is suburban and suburban future land use. You can see it's on the fringe of central urban, which is kind of a more intensive land use category. But in the terms of central urban, or sorry, the suburban future land use category, the category allows a wide moat of uses. The only use that's not specifically permitted are industrial uses. So the context of the suburban future land use, when it says it's predominantly for single-family residential uses or for residential uses, is to protect emerging and existing residential land uses. So to speak, that commercial land uses, public facilities, things like that are certainly intertwined in the suburban future land use categories, provided that they are compatible with. And so I'm going to kind of move out to the attachment C of the staff report, and this is the zoning map. And this zoning map shows the different zonings in different colors. And the color I want to point out is this pink shade, which is the existing mobile home zoning. You can see there is a little bit of agricultural remnant zoning at the entrance. It's always been part of this property. If you look just across McGregor, you'll see there's other mobile home parks. This is Tropicana Mobile Manor, as it might have been renamed with its rebranding and its redevelopment. And we'll talk a little bit about this project. But there's some mobile home zoning contiguous, and you'll also see that there's some RV zoning in the context of just the immediate surrounding area. And to say that this is all in the suburban future land use category, woven into that category with residential single-family uses are mobile home parks. There's recreational vehicle parks. Those have actually existed prior to many of these residential single families. They came first. The residential single-family development grew around these projects. Groves is the conventional RV park here that is just shown within the extent of this map. But if we go out farther, you'll see more mobile home, more RV development. It's normal in the context of this area in terms of how that fits in with residential land uses. This is the 8636 map that was adopted for the Century 21 Mobile Home Park. This was adopted by the Board of County Commissioners in 1987 during an exercise where the comprehensive plan rolled out, and mobile home park owners who had we'll call it a rental park, where it was all under one parcel. They weren't individual platted lots, but there were sites within parks, didn't conform with the current code, and they saw that as an issue. So they gave park owners, mobile home rental park owners, the opportunity to come forward with a map and vest those sites. Vest those sites without subdividing them, and this park received approval in that time frame where that was allowed, and it vested this site for 320 mobile home units, which previously existed prior to destruction per the testimony you've heard. When we look at the site layout of this, since we do have a fixed layout here of what could be on this site and what was historically on this site, we see in the context of when this was designed, there was really nothing around it besides other mobile home parks. You can see that the sites are right up to the property line. There's no separation. There's no buffering. It wasn't required at that time. And if we look at the open space exhibit, which I think for a pictorial reference is the easiest way to digest, they're creating space around the perimeter of their property that didn't previously exist because modern code requirements would require a new RV park to do such. So the example I provided in the context of the fabric of the surrounding area, it doesn't have a 40-foot wide buffer with the plantings that are required. So that's not a comparable RV park to use as a basis for trying to understand what the impacts are of that transient RV park. I'll make it clear on the record that that is a transient RV park in the Groves portion of this pictorial slide that I showed you. But moving forward on what I'm trying to say is that this buffer is substantial. It's one of the most substantial buffers in the Land Development Code, and that's because the county recognized that Lee County is an attractive place for folks to bring their RVs, and that we would get ahead of that and adopt regulations in the Land Development Code that adequately separate RV parks, new modern RV parks, from surrounding land uses. That includes residential land uses.
So to go back for a moment, though, the vesting plan that you showed the slide prior, because that was vested, even though it's got MH2 zoning, somebody could come in today and recreate the mobile home park that was there with this same exact configuration?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay, so when staff was evaluating the impacts, you were looking at the difference between this and the RV park that's being proposed?
We believe that deserves its fair share of weight when considering this context. Thanks. I won't go too far into the landscape plan. Mr. Walsh has articulated it. I want to just point and I want to emphasize there is no reduction in required planting material. While the buffers taper, while there are easements that would displace trees, those trees are just placed in areas where they are planted, clustering them even more in areas. I think we adequately discussed that there's a LCU easement. I think it's a pump station. It serves the surrounding community and the park, and access to this can't be impeded. Planting material typically isn't something that's allowed in these easements because they want to use their 4,000 square feet of easement area that they are easement holders of. So the applicant, during their review of the staff report, agreed to providing, again, the required plant material just in and outside of that location, so that plant material that would be expected there is there. And that was one of the exhibits you see in the staff report when it comes to the surrounding buffer. So moving on to Tropicana, you've heard some testimony about how some park owners, mobile home rental park owners, are deciding to rebuild in what was, one of the most devastating storm surges the county has ever seen. And some of them have decided to elevate mobile homes. And it looks a little awkward. I visited these sites. I have some exhibits here to show you what they look like. And this was their prerogative, but to elevate these mobile home sites. And I want to show you what this looks like. Now, this was a figure in the staff report. And it just gives you an idea as to what if this property owner decided not to add fill to their property and they just wanted to elevate their mobile home, it would most definitely change the impact of what this mobile home land use was from its existing stage to what it's proposed. A lot of these units, and here's that park, this is a 2025 aerial. LIPA, or Lee County Property Appraiser, has recently published these on their GeoView, their tax map, so these are fairly recent. And I pulled this particular frame here because it shows the actual scale of these mobile homes. It dwarfs the one remaining mobile home that previously existed. I mean, this is almost like a 2-story mobile home. And you can even see it dwarfs the commercial on McGregor in terms of just its height. And so this is a real possibility as to what can occur, again, without a buffer. There's no required buffer. There's no required separation. 5 feet from their property line is the back of this home. In the context of this request, you have your buffer that's required. And I pull this buffer because it's the most common buffer throughout the site. They label their buffers B, H, G, and F, and I'll place on the record, those don't correspond to LDC buffers when it comes to their naming convention. It was just a point of reference for each buffer section that they're showing. But this is the most common buffer here. It shows the existing chain link fence to remain. It shows the required planting material. It shows the pedestrian path. That's that 40 feet of separation before we get to these RVs, which do not need to be elevated. We certainly expect them to be lower than the actual view shed of the top of the 14-foot high tree, which are obviously going to mature into larger trees. And if they want to place testimony on the record as to what that expectation is over the years, how they grow and what the requirement is. But these are required trees. If another storm comes and takes them out, they are required to replant them at that height in the appropriate location, and that's enforced. That's an enforceable zoning condition. Through this plan development process, staff has the opportunity to mitigate impacts that are perceived from this proposal with special conditioning. That's contrary to conventional zoning, which this property is currently zoned, where you just fall within the box of the rules and you can do whatever you can that fits within that box without real inference on the context of what's around you. So sometimes those rules can create incompatibility or not as compatible development. And so with that said, we have a document, it's attachment E of the staff report for just everyone who's listening in. This is the staff recommended conditions. It's a 6-page document. It's typical of a recreational vehicle plan development, especially a modern one, where the development is tied to the master concept plan. So there's a sense of predictability in terms of where are the amenities going, what can we expect from those amenities, and there's development parameters in terms of the maximum number of units. In this case, the maximum number of units is 404 transient units. A caretaker's residence is also on the schedule of uses. That would subtract from that total of transient RV units. The schedule of uses is typical of a recreational vehicle park, includes some accessory uses that are expected within these RV parks that are internal to and serve those and are subordinate to the principal RV park. The site development regulations are atypical, again, of RVPDs throughout the county that have been adopted over the last 30 years. We have a special condition for consumption on premises, understanding that this is probably more of a resort-style RV park because of the location, that there's likely going to be consumption on premises in conjunction with the amenities, and I would feel that we would get out ahead of that and lay out some conditions regarding live entertainment, amplified sound, things like that, where these can become enforceable conditions moving forward to promote compatibility. We have conditions on open space and transient units, that these are transient units because for the purpose of our analysis, if they're not transient units, their density, and then we have to review this in a different light. So that these are transient units, and to answer your question regarding would these units have to be removed during a storm? Yeah, there is actually a Lee County Land Development Code section that says if they're not tied down, they must leave. And if they don't leave, the county can remove them from the site at the owner's expense. So there's already a tool in the toolbox for that situation. There's a minimum night stay that was offered in the applicant's conditions. I think they did this in response to their public outreach, where they were trying to make it apparent that this is a higher end RV resort, or that's what they're aiming for. And so the minimum night stay that's in condition 7, which I don't think there's any objection to, is 3-night minimum. It's a 3-night minimum stay, kind of eliminate some of the back and forth of the transient day trip, day nights. So that's a condition that we've proffered, the applicant's accepted. There's an hurricane emergency management plan that has been proffered. This is prototypical also of a RV park. There's condition concerning the buffer along the pump station utility easement to make sure that's abundantly clear at time of development order. And there is a condition regarding the dumpster location. Originally in the staff report, you can see there's a long drawn-out analysis about the dumpster enclosure being just on the north side, adjacent to the RPD and between the buffer. And staff's position was it would be more appropriate to locate that internal to the resort to kind of remove that nuisance from the center, or remove that nuisance further from the perimeter. The applicant has provided you with updated master concept plans. They reflect that.
Sorry, I'm not sure who's speaking. I'm trying really hard to focus on everyone that's speaking, and whoever's at the podium, I want to give my full attention. So if everyone can please just hold comments until we get here. I'd like to give everybody, whenever you come up, I want to give you my attention too. Thank you, Adam. Can you continue?
Thank you. So just touching on the dumpster location again, the applicant has relocated that. It was a had substantial capacity because of the number of units. It seemed important to staff to make sure that that location was internal to the site further to remove the day-to-day potential nuisances that could become of that. They have agreed to that. The location's been changed. We think that's certainly a compatibility piece that is important to this when we look at this design. And it also emphasizes the ability of county staff and the county in rendering a decision on manipulating these sites to make it more compatible with the surrounding area.
And you talked about the minimum night stay is 3 nights, and then I assume you're not setting a maximum night because that's already within the definition of a transient park. They have to be less than 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly, but we kind of reiterate it in condition 6.
Correct. So at the end of so they can be there anytime between 3 nights and 6 months, and at the end of 6 months, they have to be removed.
That's correct. The deviations we went over, there's a couple deviations from the RVPD buffer section to allow for those situations where we recognize this is a redevelopment project. There's existing infrastructure, i.e. the utilities, pump station, the access on McGregor, and so the conditions attached to those deviations mitigate what we consider the reduction in buffer to allow an enhanced buffer. So that 8-foot high wall has to be a masonry wall or a berm wall combination. That's going to help with sound attenuation. That's probably going to be a betterment from this existing situation where there is no required buffer. That access exists there in terms of its relationship with the backyard of the single-family residences on those properties. So they're expecting there an 8-foot high, tall, solid wall, and that's measured from the grade of their property in terms of how the fence grade is measured. So we certainly feel that that is an appropriate way to handle the size constraint that they have just in that pinch point. The relief from 10-291 is to allow 1 access point instead of 2, but they are going to provide 2. 1 will just be for emergency purposes only. That's a typical deviation, and Lee County Department of Transportation staff has reviewed that. We are recommending approval of these deviations as mentioned in the staff report. The other 2 deviations I won't go into because they've been spoken about, but I would just submit to you on the record that this plan development has met its onus of demonstrating it meets the criteria for rezoning. It's an appropriate land use in the context of the area that it's currently in. I call it the web that it's currently in. It fits in just like other land uses. And staff is certainly open to hearing some additional comments from the public to see if there's any other ways to make this a better product. And with that concludes my presentation. If I had any questions.
None from the applicant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break before we start the public comment period to give the court reporter a break and everybody can stretch their legs. So we'll take 10 minutes, and at 10:20 we'll come back, and I'll start, as I said, in the order that I have the cards. If there's anyone that needs to speak in a particular order because you need to be first or you need to be together, if you can just let Adam know, and then he can rearrange the cards before I receive them, that would be helpful. Thank you. Okay, we are back on the record. The first card that I have is for Adam and Elise Sewell. Thank you, and I apologize if I butcher anyone's name. It is not intentional. I will do my best, and please correct me. Good morning.
Good morning, thank you. Adam Sewell, resident of Viridian Development. And a couple of questions and comments for the group here as well. One specific area of concern is that the soil being excavated and the site plan is going to be elevated. That is going to materially increase the amount of stormwater runoff, both to our development in Viridian as well as Kelly Greens and neighboring areas. I did not see the hydrostatic study, but would like to understand if it's being considered by the zoning board, the increased volume of water caused by elevation, which would normally not flow there, because the existing area right now has a significant problem with the evacuation of water based upon the dating of the infrastructure. So this has a material impact, and unless there's a capital plan with engineering to address it, we're going to have considerable issues. And by background, I run a company of engineers and scientists, and we've been in the, I'm a licensed general contractor for the state of Florida as well as numerous other states, and we're also licensed engineers across the United States. So we've not done any study on this, however, that is a significant concern. The second area of concern is the ability to mitigate noise. These vehicles that will come in there are going to be a combination of vehicles, including ones that have a higher noise output than residential vehicles in single-family homes, as well as the activities for a transient RV park, people on vacation, will be different. There is a single limited noise barrier at the front. We would advise, recommend, and request that a noise barrier be erected with a minimum height of 12 foot. It's approximately 1.5 dB per meter, or 3 feet of mitigation. An 8-foot height wall will have a minimal impact, especially since the ends of that are not contiguous for the property, meaning that all the neighbors will hear all of the noise from the volume of activity coming from the property. The second area is within the 40-foot barrier. Recommended practice, the standard best uses, are for a staggered group of arborvitaes, not single ones. We've had to do this around the United States. The staggered group does several things. It does mitigate noise, reduces pollution. It also increases the ability to extract water during minor flooding areas as well. So we recommend a staggered rows of arborvitaes, and they can pick the ones that are most resistant as well. Take a quick look here. The last issue I have here is really on the plan. If there is a plan to evacuate vehicles during storms. For hurricanes, there's certainly enough time, but the last issue we had was the tornado in 2021. In the back of the Viridian development, you will still see debris from Century 21 still in our development. So we are interested in how the plans might exist in order to evacuate those vehicles on short notice, and if Siesta RV Resort has the capacity to mitigate and to be liable for damage both from vehicles, other debris that has already caused damage in surrounding areas as well. The other area was when we attended an October 14th public meeting with Siesta RV Resorts. They stated that they were not certain that they were going to build the clubhouse at the beginning. So that gave us concern to the capitalization for the project. Will they have sufficient capital to build the clubhouse, attend to the increased requirements from the county, as well as for maintenance and reserves to attend for any natural disasters, which are certainly likely. That is it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming today.
You're welcome.
Did Elise want to speak as well?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
The next card I have is from Martha Lowe.
Good morning.
Hello. My name is Martha Lowe. I live in Coconut Creek, and we live in a very nice and quiet neighborhood. So having an RV park will decrease the value of our homes. That's why we are mostly concerned. And Lee County is already going to build affordable apartments where the Sanibel outlets used to be. So adding an RV park is going to triple the traffic in our area. RV parks can attract a significant amount of traffic, especially during peak season, and we all know that. RVs typically have holding tanks for black and gray water, which can produce odors if not properly empty and clean. And typical RVs are 10 to 14 feet tall. And if I understand correctly, you're planning to build an 8 feet tall wall. So that's not, I don't think it's adequate. And RVs can generate noise from the idling of the engines, generators, and other activities, potentially disrupting the peace and quiet of our neighborhood. About removing RVs that the county says in case of a storm, can we trust Lee County to remove them on a timely matter? And those are my concerns right now.
Thank you. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you so much.
The next card I have is for Kelly Hale. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. My name is Kelly Halley, and I live in Coconut Creek on the east side, the west side of Coconut Creek, and I abut Groves RV Park. And what I've seen is the county really not enforcing any of the codes that you are talking about today that you're going to be enforcing in this new park. And what I'm seeing is that the buffers that you're suggesting that you're going to do for this park, I think the people that live in Viridian should be very concerned, because even if there is a buffer to start this community, what I've seen is that the county has allowed groves to encroach within that buffer, and they have created a ton of new impervious areas since Hurricane Ian, which is creating a lot of stormwater runoff. And I do think that the plan sounds great, but once this community is built, the concern is the monitoring after. As Martha just said, when we just had Hurricane Milton, we called the RV park directly to ask them if they were going to remove some of the things that they had stored in their buffer. And they basically said no, they were not going to do that. I called Lee County and asked them if they would enforce them to do that. And they said it's up to the owner of the property, whether they remove RVs and other storage that they have within the buffer. My biggest concern I am not directly impacted because of where I'm located, but the people that are in Coconut Creek that are going to be sort of fronting this on McGregor, you are going to have a lot more noise, you are going to have a lot more traffic, and I do think that there's the potential for this to just go astray, and I would hope that Lee County would consider the buffer and the impervious area that's going to be added by increasing the volume of the number of houses there. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. The next card I have is for Frank Stipkovich. Good morning.
Hello, I'm also a resident of the neighborhood Coconut Creek, and I'm opposed to the new zoning of that development. The Iona area is beauty is that it's sequestered. Let's not ruin it with what's good about it with RV traffic and transient and everything that goes along with that. How about something more permanent that's a nice upgrade?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie Stipkovich. Good morning.
Good morning. I am also in Coconut Creek. We live also, like Kelly Hale, abutting near the wall against Groves RV Park. Many excellent points have already been brought up, so I don't want to repeat those. However, with Groves RV Park, although it's been brought up that that is a transient RV park, it's very different than what we're proposing here with this new Siesta RV park. Many, if not most, of the properties in Groves RV Park are indeed permanent. So we don't have traffic. There might be other things wrong there, but we don't have traffic coming from every single one of those spots. So we're proposing 404 transient RV spots, 100% at this new site, and we don't even have that with Groves RV Park, besides the other issues that they have. So I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. The next card I have is for Judith Francino.
I will pass.
Okay. Thank you. Patricia Givens. Good morning.
How are you today? I am also Coconut Creek, and we are also, we back up to the Groves. So I have a couple concerns about this. First is policy 5.1.5. This is a highly residential area. Most of the homes are secured, whether it's a manufactured home. This park is like 2 upscale residential communities, Coconut Creek, Viridian. Behind it is a full-on country club. These things are not, it's not a fit for the area at all. Aesthetically, practically, property value-wise. Instead of elevating it, it's bringing it down. So, and in addition to that, with RVs come additional bicycles. There have been accidents on McGregor with bicycles, lack of visibility, lack of sidewalks, too much traffic coming and going from Sanibel Island. A lot of people take that up there. When Ian came through, the Groves was storing boats along the wall, okay? Many of those properties are manufactured homes on site. I would say 80% of that park is not really transient. And those sites are away from the walls. That's not the case here. Anything that was not secured broke our wall. And that is why our community flooded. The drainage is poor. It's not, as Kelly said, things are not being maintained and the county is not enforcing them. The drainage that is supposed to be maintained by the Groves and flow out to John Morris is instead flowing in to our drainage system because there is no enforcement. And the drainage going to the river is not being maintained by the county like it should be. So all of these things that look very good on paper practically are very harmful to the surrounding area. We can't take the traffic. We can't secure our homes. We get transients on bicycles going through communities. It's not the place for this. When you compare this to places on 41, that is the appropriate place for an RV park. Summerlin, the appropriate place for an RV park. Better traffic flow, less residential, less impact, safety, aesthetics, quality of life. And I didn't hear anything about lighting. What's going on with lighting? Because the lights have to be very high, and the insurance is going to require it. And all of that lighting is going to interfere with everyone surrounding the park. I have that problem.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
So that's it. Thank you.
Dale Givens? Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Dale Givens, Coconut Creek also, a good contingent here today. I'm also the president of the board of directors. I'm probably going to reiterate a few things that were already said, but I think you need to hear them loud and clear. Specifically, I'm confused, and I'm sorry, it's the first time I've been involved in this, but I know there's an issue with soil being taken off-site. It sounds like it's cheaper to keep it on-site, so the developer would like to do that. So now they're going to jack it up. I think the gentleman from Viridian hit the nail on the head. I hear nobody talking about how that's going to impact the elevation, where that water's going to run off to. It's going to run off into all the surrounding neighborhoods. And I don't think it's being addressed clearly or concisely. The screening, also the gentleman from the Viridian mentioned a higher wall. These RVs today can go up to 13.6 to clear bridges. Most of them are over 12 feet. What's usually on the top of an RV is the air conditioning unit. And that air conditioning unit's what's making noise. So I think for all the people surrounding it, a vegetation buffer doesn't cut it. I think it needs to be a solid buffer of at least 12 feet high, and ideally higher than that, but that's probably reasonable. I haven't heard a lot about the access. 404 people that are going to be turning about every 3 days is going to create a lot of 18-wheeler-like rigs pulling into the community there. There's no turning lane. I understand that you stopped by and you actually saw it, which is great. I don't know that you spent a lot of time there. I drive out of Coconut Creek every day, and there's a ton of near misses. It's a traffic nightmare. It's becoming worse, which is Lee County at this point, but it's going to be magnified significantly with the high volume of traffic coming and going, and not only just cars, but now we got, 30, 40-foot vehicles trying to pull in and out with no turning lanes, no nothing. I think it's going to be a huge hazard that Lee County is putting in the way. Also mentioned was this 5.1.5. This looks like a pretty map showing a lot of pink and showing how it's just the same. Again, if anybody goes out and walks the community, it was mentioned by somebody here that about 50 to 80% of the Groves RV, which isn't Groves anymore, it's a new name, but is permanent mobile homes. So I think it's very short-sighted by this staff and the applicant to say that, oh, there's all these mobile home RV parks in the area. I think you got to go look at that specifically and find out that that's inaccurate and misleading. Lighting issues were also brought up. I think that's very real. We have it with a lot of them. It's not being addressed, and it's going to have an impact to the surrounding community there. I also understand how happy we are from the applicants that it's a 3-day minimum and up to 6 months. So again, every 3 days we could have turnover, or people can come stay for 6 months, leave for a day, go to the Walmart parking lot, come back and stay for another 6 months. I think the quality and character of the folks that are going to be coming into our residential community, not all that pink, I see a lot of blue. I see a lot of country clubs around there. But now we're, sort of degrading the property by making it transient RVs. There's another thing, and I forgot what I was thinking. Oh, yeah, last thing. And I heard again from the staff how glorious this is going to be compared to the old development that had properties and mobile homes right up against, the property line. We're going to have this fancy look of a buffer going around, even though there's a bunch of deviations to the codes, which don't make sense to me, but, and how much better it's going to look. Okay, what it's really coming down to is like putting lipstick on a pig. Okay, the pig's moving in and you're trying to pretty up the outside. How are they prettying up the outside? They're leaving a chain link fence on the outside and putting all the buffers on the inside, which means the surrounding community isn't getting the buffer. They're looking at an ugly chain link fence. Who they're buffering is the folks from the inside. You know, if I had a jail next to me, I'd like the buffers between me and the barbed wire, all right? I think it's an important thing that needs to be addressed. But yeah, that should probably summarize my conclusions. Thank you.
Next, I have John Crawford. Morning.
I live in the Viridian neighborhood just north of the project too, and everything's been covered so far. I just want to reiterate a couple things. Put in my 2 cents about having a buffer wall versus a fence. Certainly would be more aesthetically pleasing and help with sound mitigation and light mitigation, not only from the street lights, but from the RVs themselves and from the pickleball courts. And, you know, the other thing big on our list is the stormwater runoff, like Adam talked about. We've got huge problems with that. The way the system was designed in the neighborhood, which we're having cleaned and inspected within the month here, all the piping is basically level, so there's not a lot of flow one way or the other. It was designed for like our little neighborhood. So if we end up getting a lot of flow from this area, that's going to create issues for sure. And I don't know what that would mean, but it flows. If it flows into our neighborhood, then it flows out and it flows underneath McGregor and it flows into the canal next to Coconut Point and McGregor Woods in between those two. So I don't know if that can handle all of the flow coming from the area too. Yeah, those are the 2 big things that I just wanted to reiterate.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Next, I have Christine Tomlin. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I haven't done this before, so I'm a little bit nervous. The number 1 issue of concern is the word transient, which means lasting or staying for a short time. The thought of having 404 units moving in and out concerns many in our neighborhood. The area around the proposed RV park is residential, with large communities such as Cali Greens, Coconut Creek, McGregor Woods, and Viridian. When Century 21 occupied the property, it was a 55 and above community with many full-time residents. It was a residential area. It was quiet. Having a transient RV park seems inappropriate for the surrounding area. We have numerous school buses that stop and pick up children on McGregor, and having transient people deeply concerns many of us for the safety of us and for our children. Next, I visualize, because it's a resort, numerous golf carts and EV bikes riding up and down our sidewalks in the neighborhood to the stores and the restaurants. That again is in addition to the street traffic, is the sidewalk traffic. They think this is going to be a party. There are many transient RV parks along San Carlos Boulevard 41, which is typically more commercial. I view a transient RV park as commercial property, not as residential. I don't believe it fits our neighborhood. Many of these RV parks will extend or have some long-term rentals, which deeply concerns me. In fact, that this park may, over time, turn into a large storage facility, storing boats, and the rentals are going to get longer and longer. And let us approach the evacuation plans. How do you evacuate 404 units? I surely hope these units will be removed. You said you went to the entry point. How do you get 404 big motorhomes through that tiny little entrance that were initially for cars and trucks? I don't get it. Sorry. In January of 22, Century 21 was hit by a tornado. The debris from this park blew all into the Viridian subdivision, causing hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of damage. It was the flying debris that damaged our homes. Not the wind, but the debris. I have numerous photos of carports and roofs that were thrown into our homes, trees, lakes, and backyards. We cleaned this up for months. Our lake had styrofoam. I even had racquetballs and all different bicycle parts in our backyard. Are they going to allow them to put up screen tents outside of the units that can contribute to all this flying debris during a hurricane or tornado that can float or fly into our homes? Some of these structures during the hurricane were blown off their foundations. You know, what will a motorhome do? What will all the temporary structures do? Having 404 temporary structures alarms me for the safety of my home, my neighborhood, and the children. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The last card that I have is for Tanya Wojcik. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Tanya Wojcik. I'm a member of McGregor Woods, recently purchased home. And I want to call out that during the presentations, I did hear that there would be a new stormwater system created. That is a good thing because we are in a flood zone. And if you are not being good neighbors and you're not taking care of the storm surge for your property, it affects me. And we need to get serious about this because Ian devastated our area. I also worry, the nature of an RV park is very different than a mobile home. Mobile home is generally owned by one family. Maybe they're year-round, maybe they're there for 4 to 8 months, maybe they have extended family come visit, but usually you're talking like 2 people with 2 cars. An RV park, I see people put 8 people in one RV. They are partying. It can be the most lovely people on earth. It can be an upscale resort. And if they're there for 3 days and next people are there for 3 days, this is going to change our neighborhood. They are not going to respect that they are in a single family residential area. The traffic along McGregor is horrible. There are accidents there all the time. People will, I would love to see the applicant consider something like a maximum of 4 people. A maximum of, in addition to your RV, you get 1 car. Not 1 car plus your little golf cart, 1 car. And I don't know if you're willing to consider things like that, but the density of our area is going to change with 404 units, and that's just, not only do I not like it, but it's not safe. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That was the last card that I have. Did anyone else wish to speak today? Okay, thank you. Then we'll close public comment. We will take a 10-minute break so you can prepare your rebuttal and conclusion, and we'll come back at 11 o'clock.
We are back on the record and we're ready to begin with the rebuttal.
Thank you, Madam Hearing Examiner. Again, for the record, my name is Megan Strayhorn, attorney for the applicant. First and foremost, before we get the remainder of our witnesses up, I do want to thank everybody for coming and voicing your opinions and your comments here today. I will say that when we are putting together this plan for the RVPD, we are looking at the Land Development Code regulations and whether or not this rezoning and the details thereof are consistent. We've had testimony both from county staff as well as our planner opining that as it stands today, it is consistent with both the Land Development Code as well as the comprehensive plan. However, there were a couple of comments that I do believe we can provide further clarification on and would like to do so now. So first, I will call up Mr. Carl Baracco to give Kevin an overview about, there's several comments pertaining to drainage and water management and explaining that a little bit further.
Thank you again for the record, Carl Baracco. I'll first talk about the drainage system. There was concern that the internal elevations would contribute to additional discharge, and I can tell you that the internal elevations will have absolutely no effect on the water leaving the site. The reason for that is the antiquated system that exists today that I mentioned earlier will be replaced with a new system. If you look at this master concept plan, you'll see it has 6.3 acres of lake. Those lakes are used to store the water so that all the runoff from the development within the project is directed to those lakes. It's stored in those lakes and can only leave those lakes through a control structure. So that control structure then limits the amount of water leaving. So again, this system, in my opinion, will have a significant improvement for the area in terms of water quantity leaving the site and for water quality leaving the site, eventually discharging to San Carlos Bay. With regard to the off-site discharge, the water from this site will be discharged into the IDD canal that bisects the site that we looked at earlier. Again, that's all controlled, and from the IDD canal, it will eventually make its way to San Carlos Bay. With regard to the entrance will be designed during development order. That entrance will be reviewed by the design engineer and by county staff, and the Lee County turn lane policy will be considered. If a turn lane is warranted, it will be part of that development order. That's a county requirement.
So the access point is remaining the same was the testimony, but you're saying that the entrance as it exists today isn't necessarily going to be what stays?
Yes, ma'am. The connection point location would stay, but the geometry of that will be reviewed during the development order process. Similarly, with lighting, the county has lighting criteria. So lighting will be reviewed during the development order process. Many times that lighting criteria limits lighting spillage off-site to 0. I don't know exactly what it will be in this case, but that is, again, reviewed during the development order process. And finally, the last question I noted was some concern about odors, sanitary odors. This site is served by a central sewer system, and so that anytime an RV park pulls up, they will directly connect to the central sewer system. There aren't any holding tanks being used, so there is no reason why there would be any odor coming from this site as opposed to, say, the mobile home park. It would be very similar setups.
And the new utility lines that you referenced earlier, that was what that's serving? That includes the sewer to each individual RV site?
Yes. When this is designed, a whole new potable water distribution system, internal, would be designed, and also internal, a new sanitary collection system would be designed. It would be directed to that existing lift station that we talked about, but all the gravity collection would be redesigned.
And the lighting standard that you talked about, you said that you don't know yet what spillage might be allowed, but are those the standards that require like inward facing lighting and those kinds of things?
Yes, I just don't know the details of the code off the top of my head, but the county definitely has standards to be considered.
And do you know there was a question about the timing of the construction of the amenities relative to the rest? Is that a question for you?
If I may, I let the owner address that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, for the record, I'll have our planner, Mr. Couture, come up. And there was a couple of comments specifically pertaining to the existing chain link fence and the wall at the entrance point. So, Mr. Couture, could you just explain And clarify that the
Yeah.
chain link fence on 3 of the sides, that's existing, correct? We're not
Yes, the chain link.
installing a new fence.
That's correct. The chain link fence is existing, and we are not proposing to construct any new chain link fence.
Okay. And the only location of a new proposed wall, I should say, is at the entrance point, kind of that right side,
Yes.
north side of that entrance point.
Right.
So the wall will be the code compliant 8-foot wall, masonry wall, correct? As
Yes.
proposed by staff and agreed upon by applicant.
Yes.
And then in addition to that wall, there will still be those 14-foot tall trees at the time of planting. Is that correct?
That's correct, consistent with the land development code.
Okay.
And conditions imposed.
Were there any other comments that you had heard that you would want to touch on besides those?
It was only lighting, but Mr. Baracco had addressed that.
Madam Hearing Examiner, if you have any questions for Mr. Cottrell.
There were questions about the landscaping, but I don't know if that would be for you or for the other witness. They were talking about the staggering of the, I recalled that there was staggering, but I wanted clarification on that, of the
Yeah,
plantings.
is Mr.
don't-
Walsh?
I don't see, he may have stepped out.
He may have stepped out to go to the
So,
restroom.
Mr. Cottrell, is
So-
there, in the land development code,
Yeah.
are there code provisions requiring how landscaping is planted that will govern the layout of the landscaping?
Yes, there are.
Okay, so is it safe to presume that when installing the landscaping in this development, that landscaping will be consistent with the land development code and the planting designs contained therein?
That's my understanding, yes.
And for the record, those provisions are contained in section 10 between 416 and 421 of the land development code. Does that sound accurate?
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
There were questions about noise mitigation as well. Is that for you? Are there noise standards that you
Ma'am.
would be held to? Noise?
Yeah, noise standards, I didn't have that in my note to address, but the noise standards in the land development code would certainly be adhered to. It varies based on the type of noise and measurement, so forth. For example, some of the noise, the way noise is measured usually in the jurisdictions where I've worked in local governments, background noise is taken into account and subtracted from the analysis. For example, if you hear backfire from a motorcycle engine, which can be pretty loud, that would be taken into account if you've got a study that's going on trying to determine how much noise might be coming from an industrial plant, which is something that I've had experience with in different community development departments where I've worked. So the land development code takes that into account, regardless of the point of measurement, if it's at the site generating the noise or the site receiving the noise. So.
And just to clarify one last time, I thought I heard that the buffering was going to be on the outside of the wall and the fence, but there seemed to be some concern about that. Can you just confirm?
Yeah, we better get Justin for that because I went to.
Well,
aside from the deviation in the one location.
correct. So, Mr. Cottrell, in your preparation of the deviations, is it your understanding that on those 3 sides, and forgive me, I forget how they are identified, but it's on the left side of this diagram that's depicted, where the existing chain link fence is.
Yes.
Are those the only 3 sides where the vegetation will be placed on the interior of that fence?
Yes,
So only where there's an existing chain link fence will the vegetation be on the inside?
yes,
So on the remainder sides, south, east, north, northeast, that vegetation will be on the exterior side?
yes.
Okay. And the only wall that's being proposed is the new wall construction that's being proposed, thank you, Mr.
In the
Mendez,
area, yes.
is,
Where the cursor is, yes.
Okay.
Right now.
at this time, we would ask for one of the owners to come up and provide a little overview of the development and kind of, we've heard some comments pertaining to noise and odors and whatnot, and just explaining what this park will look like in operation and the vision that he and his family have had or has. My apologies while I just flip forward. There's a couple of slides towards the end with some conceptual renderings. Oh. If I could get it to Okay, I will introduce Mr. Joel Christensen.
Good morning.
Good morning. All this has been very technical, and meanwhile, we're going to be running this business. I want to thank Carl, Vince, Megan, Adam, and the public for their input. I've been taking notes so that I run my own small business. I like to address problems up front rather than getting those phone calls. I don't like those phone calls. So I've been taking notes. We are 5 families. We are not a corporation. We have owned this property since 1973. Our fathers are turning 90 this year. So I'm one of the kids, and I want to be represented as one of the kids because anytime you're my age and you can be in that group. Anyway, our fathers are 90, and the kids are now running this. We expected to run Century 21 forever, as it was, as a community. I think we had a good feel amongst our residents that our park was a community. I know that sometimes projects take on a little bit of the personality and character of their owners or the people who are managing them. We had a very good manager in Jim Capes for 40 years and Destry for the last 10 years. We still employ a maintenance man who's on site to make sure that we're watching out for safety, for vandalism, for graffiti, and repairing those promptly so that they don't become a problem. We have spent a chunk of change on removing 320 homes, mobile home homes that were destroyed. 320 homes at $8,000 a home is a lot of money in order to clean up the site and maintain it well in the community. My wife and I went for a walk there last night, past the gate, and it's clean. There's a few rocks or bricks on carports, but we're maintaining it and mowing it every monthly. So it's not a weed field. 50 acres. It's a beautiful site. You walk around it, that's a big field. We have had opportunities and offers to sell it to people who would go back in and put in exactly what was there before, only changing it to be similar to Osprey Bay, elevated at that height, no change in zoning. To me, I want to put in a business there that we can be proud of, that we're going to run like it's at our own because it is our own, and keep it nice. So in that process, we put together some slides, renderings of the architectural plan. So I don't want to build something that we're not proud of. I went around and looked at a lot of RV parks. I will say I haven't looked at the RV park adjoining Coconut Creek. I just didn't go in there. I went around and looked at some that were very, very fancy. They sell condominium plans to people and then they own the lot. That doesn't work for us. I've gone to some that look like, and I can say this because they're not here anymore, the Kmart version. And they were low end, and you have to be very good at driving your RV to get your rig parked in one of these spaces. RVs are 12'8" to 13 foot high. We will have full hookups for sewer and electrical, so nobody's going to need to run their generator. The nice RVs that we're talking, Class A RVs, they have quiet hours in their programming. You set the times that they're allowed to run their generator, and you block the times you're not allowed to run a generator. It's part of the programming of the rig, but they won't even need that because they'll be able to plug into 50 amp circuits at our sites. And so with our renderings, this is what our clubhouse would look like. The front building on the left is the check-in and exercise rooms, game rooms, that kind of thing. Business center. There's place there to rent out golf carts to people. Then the building on the right is more of a banquet hall, ballroom, dance area, includes a caterer's kitchen. Architecturally, one of the owners prefers prefers a Bahamian, so like the Bahamas style of architecture. So that's why we have the arches and the like that. And then this is the swimming pool amenities area. We have hired an architect. In my travels, I found an architect who I liked. And we hired him, and he designed something similar to what they have at these other parks. So every time I ask him a question, I say, okay, is that like this park? Because I've seen this. I'm not imagining this. I've seen this installed at his park. So when we come up with something, it's something I've seen there. It's something I'm looking for. This includes the swimming pool, the hot tub, the fire pits, the grilling area. To the right is the banquet hall. To the left is the clubhouse. Also, there's 2 bathhouses and a maintenance building. So an overview, more of a top view to show the geometry. This is the clubhouse area towards the front of the park with the pickleball courts, shuffleboard, bocce ball, cornhole, a lawn with artificial grass for movie night or that kind of thing. In the winter, it gets dark here pretty early, so it's not a late night thing. And then the type of RVs are Class A and Class Super C. If you go out on the interstate by Tri-West RV, you can see they have 100. The Wyatt brothers have 100 of these nice, fancy, beautiful RVs. We walked through some of them. They're very nice. They're quite expensive. That's our vision. We want to run a nice business. So, thank you.
With respect to the golf carts, you just mentioned that you are going to allow some rentals. Is there any, in your personal documents, it's not in the zoning, I know, but was there any limitation on the amount of vehicles that they can have? Or the expectation is that they would require a golf cart because they're not going to be coming with that with their own?
A lot of these RVs tow vehicles, so they don't have a place to tow a golf cart. So if they're coming here and parking their RV for 3 months and they're driving around in their personal vehicle, they don't have a way really to transport the golf cart here. So as a service, we would have some golf carts that we would rent to folks. Also possibly e-bikes, but golf carts essentially. And the whole storage issue, I don't have any storage designed into the master plan for people's boats and things like that. That is an unsolved problem, at least from our perspective, of how much that need would be and whether we would even, we would just suggest that they store it off-site. We haven't worked that out.
And what is the evacuation process then? So if you evacuate the RVs, are they also required to take everything with them that's there so that there wouldn't be errant debris remaining on the site?
Yeah, they're going to take their RV and they would tow their vehicle. They would need to take their personal property off-site upon the event that Lee County calls for an evacuation of this area.
And is that something that you oversee, though, as the owner? You require them to evacuate, or they're just left to their own to determine whether they're going to do that or not? We all know that Lee County issues the evacuation order. Not everybody listens. So what?
We would require them to evacuate our site.
Okay.
Because
what's the triggering point for that? Is that in a major storm event once there's a warning or a watch or something? You've got some metric?
when they have the warning that says evacuation is required for the Lee County storm warning system. I'm not sure the exact details of how to phrase that.
Are we in evacuation zone A here?
I don't know off the top of my head. I will double check that.
I would assume so, but I don't know. But that just depends. All right.
Like everyone who went through the hurricane and we got hit by that tornado, we've gotten hit by 2 hurricanes in 50 years and 1 tornado. The 2 last events were in the same year. I'm that's why I don't want to put a mobile home park back there, because now we know what we know. And we had people who didn't evacuate. We had a couple whose husband was bedridden and his wife couldn't get him evacuated. And they rode out the storm in a mobile home park. I don't want to put that back there. because I don't want to do that to people.
Thank you.
So I would prefer to just require them to buckle up their car and head for higher ground. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen. That would conclude applicant's rebuttal. At this time, just as a reminder, we have received staff's report. We are in agreement with their recommendation of approval as well as the conditions and deviations contained therein. And we'll take any questions if you have any.
Thank you.
Again, for the record, Adam Mendez, the County Zoning Section. I want to request, Madam Hearing Examiner, that you do leave the record open just for a post-hearing written submission. We've heard some good feedback here. I think that this is opportunity for us to refine these conditions to address some of those concerns that may not be very specific in the code. And I'll try to touch on some of those as I go down the list and what I've jotted down here for feedback. And starting off at the top, the first speaker, Adam, I believe is his name as well, was discussing a noise barrier being closer to 8 to 12 feet high. We'd like proper time to analyze what the delta is between where this noise is coming from on the vehicle. Is it adequately shielded by an 8-foot vehicle? Is the noise coming from the top of the vehicle? The delta of what is the transportation that could currently come in the site without a wall, without a buffer, what that difference is. And I think Vince did a good job explaining that in a noise analysis when we're talking about those impacts. I think we've addressed the landscaping question, so I wanted to move on to the generators. I believe the Land Development Code requires new RV parks to connect to utilities. They cannot be reliant upon generators. But in an abundance of caution, staff is suggesting to incorporate some conditions concerning generators specific to this development. There was a lot of discussion about the Groves, as it's one of the closest RV parks, maybe a case study in the folks who live around here and their experience with RV parks. So the first thing I want to say is it's zoned RV3. That's a conventional zoning district, that meaning there are no conditions in place. This zoning was per a 1972 zoning resolution. It was developed. What was surrounding it was not developed. And because of that, there was no buffer required. There's a 40-foot space in the zoning regulations that are applicable to it. There's no trees, and that space could be used for storage. In fact, there's a dumpster location towards the back that abuts Coconut Creek, and that has been a case for code violation complaints over several years. I want to say at least the last couple years. And we looked at this property and its zoning requirements and understand that this is not an apples to apples comparison. It does allow transient RV park sites. This is a 2025 aerial, so you can clearly see that there is a fair share of RV sites, and I imagine there may be more as this comes online after the storm impacts and they decide whether or not to put mobile homes on this park, which those mobile homes are actually park models by definition because mobile homes aren't permitted in RV districts. So this is a good example for the evolution of the county's regulations with concern to RV parks, why these 40-foot buffers are required and what the difference is here. So there isn't necessarily an enforcement issue here. This park predates the regulations that these folks were hoping were in place, but they weren't in place, and neither were the homes surrounding this park. So it's grandfathered in. I wanted to touch in on Policy 5.1.5, which states that the character and integrity of the residential environment shouldn't be compromised by other uses. And so it's my testimony here that it's not only this RV park, but if you look at the Iona-McGregor community as a whole, there are several RV parks, Siesta Bay, Indian Creek. These are all RV parks in this area that are part of the character of this particular residential environment. And proximity, this is one of the closer RV parks. So it's my testimony that establishing a modern RV park that has to meet the modern day requirements of buffering and civil engineering, site design, that it's going to be certainly an enhancement or a betterment than what it was and what it could be currently. Forgive me just one second as I pan through here. There was a concern issued regarding the tornadoes and the debris that was coming from this property at the time those tornadoes hit. And while those tornadoes hit an already weakened property that just been ravaged by a hurricane, I want to just put on the record here that the conditions of approval here are consistent with the code. They don't allow accessory structures on transient RV lots. There will be no accessory structures, screen cages, carport roofs. Those aren't permitted on individual RV lots per this recommendation before you. So we don't have that concern. I think the applicants touched on that there are lighting standards, there are noise standards. Those are just background conditions that these developers will have to rely on when they're developing their site. They'll have to meet those standards. We will take a closer look at the conditions to see if we can include some other enhancements to ensure that those measures are taken and monitored and kept up with. But the code enforcement process is the process should a buffer not be sufficient or in place as it's required to be. That process is available to anyone to exercise that to ensure that what is required is being enforced. And so with that, that concludes my comments, and I'm happy to address any questions that you might have directly of staff.
I think that you covered the same things that I had written down that still remained. How long do the parties want to have for this post-hearing submittal?
I would say 2 weeks, please.
So I'll leave the record open until end of business on May 2nd, just for revised conditions to incorporate some of the things that you heard today. And as always, if you could make that a joint submittal and just indicate if you're in agreement or not, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, for everybody that came today, if you filled out a card, you'll receive a copy of my recommendation once it's released, as well as the date of the board hearing on the matter. And if you spoke today, then you hopefully will come and speak at the board as well. They will make the final decision in this regard. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Please stay well and be safe.